Been a while, huh? Anyone who knows my channel at this point knew that I was going to have to throw my review into the ring eventually, so to not waste any time on this, I am RexBebop, and welcome to After Playing Reviews, where I give you my positives and negatives on a game and tell you whether or not it's a buy now, wait till discount, or ignore altogether. So, if you've seen the intro, let's just have a rundown on what I enjoyed with them positives. Let's do it. Alright, starting off with the positives. First positive I would like to give this game is the difficulty of the CPU. Now, as to not regurgitate what I said with the positives that I gave last year with 2K22, because more or less every positive that I gave in that game last year in the gameplay department pretty much applies to 2K23. Except the notable change would be the pin system, which took me a while to get used to. I actually really enjoy the pin system now because it actually really feels like, oh god, I really achieved kicking out, you know? So, other than that, like I said, I'd have to give it to the difficulty of the CPU this time around. On Legend, it's an absolute beast and insane just how much of a threat it poses in comparison to last year, even without touching the CPU sliders, which is something that Fire Pro Wrestling had, which is an absolute plus that this game has it. It's like, y'all really thought of this one, huh? Okay, this is something that is very much welcome, because if you don't want a giant jumping on you or whatever, or jumping off the top rope, you can turn that stuff off, which is very much welcome. They thought of this. Good. The second positive I would have to get this game would have to go to My Rise 2 or My Rise, The Lock, and Legacy Stories. Now, when it was announced that My Rise, or My Career, just, different name and all that this year was going to be more in line with what 2K did with Buzz from 2K19 storyline, and God help me, I cannot believe I have to reference these two again in some form or fashion. Red and Trey from WWE 2K23, and not the Your Choice, Your Story like last year. I was skeptical to say the least, especially with how Red and Trey's story left a lot to be desired. And I was actually pleasantly surprised at how both the Lock and Legacy stories played out. I started with the Lock story, and with not giving too much away, you're an indie star coming into the Fed not as yourself, but as the Lock, which is something that your character flat out calls out as corny, and even the story itself points out how much it really is corny. One of the things I didn't really expect is for this story to be self-aware. Actually, both stories are very much self-aware about what what they're going for here. And it just calls out the actual product itself, which was maddening to say the least. It's weird how this game actually calls out how bonehead WWE itself can be, which is insane. It still gets me. However, staying on track, eventually you end up getting your indie gear back until the Lock phase kinda phases out, but everyone will still refer to you as the Lock though. You'll find out the Lock never likes to deal with others and likes to do things solo, in which his words has gotten him this far, which really adds to his character and how stubborn he is as the story progresses. Now the Legacy storyline is vastly different from the Lock storyline, as your character, who isn't from the indies, but is the niece of a legend known as Justine, and I cannot begin to explain how much I bagged on this generic ass name throughout my time playing this, who is from the Ruthless Aggression era. You strive to make a name for yourself while getting out of your aunt's huge shadow and ego, as you will see throughout your time playing the story. All in all, I had way more fun with the Legacy story than Lock's, as I felt like there was a much better story crafted with LJ, aka Justine's niece, and the world reacting to the second generation star as the story progressed better rather than Lock's storyline. I can't really explain without giving too much of the story away, but all in all, having an actual end to the story was a lot better than it being endless as well, which was kind of a negative when I think back of how, like, you get championships, you get put in like pointless matches and all that, last year, there really was no end to it. There was not even get to the Hall of Fame thing. They're gonna do something like that again. It needs to be a checklist, and it needs to be like the Hall of Fame needs to be the end all be all goal of what you're trying to do. You know, be the best of all time and all that, or a GOAT checklist or whatever, something like that. However, I did miss being an absolute menace from last year's My Rise. Yes, choices do exist throughout both stories, but they don't have the same impact as they did last year. At least not for me personally. I can only speak for myself in this one. They don't give that much of an oomph when you do a negative choice this year, at least to me. Some I'm gonna have to go back and replay, but so far, not really feeling it. Not like last year. Last year, we're stealing Eddie Guerrero's limo and all that, stealing the daggone NXT UK Women's Championship and all that. Like, just being an absolute menace to society, man. You can't top that from last year. You really can't. Third positive, I would have to give it to War Games itself. And with War Games being the new addition in match type and one of the top billing things that they advertised when 2K23's press was really starting to get traction, War Games is an absolute chaos in the best possible way. You have the option of doing 3 versus 3 or 4v4, 2K themselves try for 5v5, the normal War Games match. However, complications prevented that from happening and having the advantage in the match or your opponent getting it. War Games doesn't actually begin until all competitors are in the ring, which means you're essentially beating the piss out of people and not going for the win until then. It's better to actually play this and actually explaining it. But it's such a great match type, and hopefully they add more match types like this in future games, because stuff like this is a good foundation to have. I love me some War Games. It's probably one of my favorite match types that they've done, But add old match types in. It's not like you can at this point. And the last positive, I would have to give it to My GM. My GM more or less stays exactly the same as last year, but with more match types, adding triple threats, fatal 4-ways, and adding more singles and tag titles. In additions like the GM assistant, shake-up cards, power-up card reminders were a great addition as well. Overall, I feel like My GM has done a lot better this year than last year, considering stuff was missing from last year and they kind of patched things in as the year progressed last year. So they're pretty much building off of that, and from what they built with the foundation that they did last year, they're still going in the right direction with My GM. So yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot better than last year. So now we gotta talk about the negatives next. Let's do it.
Welcome to hell.
Alright, first negative I'm gonna have to give it to right off the bat. It's the showcase mode. It's funny how I started the negatives last year with the showcase, so this is pretty much a repeat on this. And as I said last year, I'm kind of gonna regurgitate on this one, so forgive me, but the showcase mode is a hit or miss. Again, last year was a miss for me because, alright, there's matches missing from Ray's showcase because, certain people weren't in the company at the time and all that. And Cena's showcase, I basically lived through most of this man's career growing up. No, I did. I totally did. And seeing most of this play out with generic trash-ass music in the background of every match after, he introduces the match and how good they were and all that. The only difference is it's you're battling Cena himself. That's the only difference here with this showcase, which, okay, that's great, but, that's all we're doing here? Regardless, the only redeeming thing about showcase mode this year is, again, the unlockables. And honestly, this surprised me when I got toward the end of it, were the last 2 matches where you go up against friggin' Super Cena. Yes, the meme is real, people. The meme is real. You get to fight an invisible version of John Cena, which is in the game, which is his overall is more than Roman Reigns. It's a point more than Reigns. His stats are through the roof. And I'm like, you know what? I'm glad you're leaning into the meme, because it's stuff like this that I like. And a Cena versus Bruno Sammartino versus Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Hulk Hogan match. It basically completely goes off the rail at the end, which actually ended up being a positive for it overall. But at this point, if they just took out Showcase mode and replaced it with Road to WrestleMania, implemented that, and made stories out of that again, I'd be fine. Or putting more time into universe mode, I would be fine with that. I would be copacetic with that, because at this point, again, hit or miss, it's a one-shot mode. You're not going to replay it after you've unlocked everything. You're not, because you already have everything out of it. The arenas, the character titles, you're not going to go back to it after that. You can't tell me otherwise. And the music, I don't understand, like, what was the thought process behind this? Like, why, for every match, was there generic music playing throughout? And I don't get it. I really do not get it. Alright, the second negative is my faction. And I did not give my faction the proper burial it deserved last year, because I only messed with it for like 5 matches before I gave up on it entirely. However, now knowing exactly how backwards this mode is now, I honestly can't stand it. I can't stand this thing's existence, like, at all. On the surface, it's a consistent mode that 2K puts content into so players can keep coming back to play through it, and it's updating towers. However, underneath, it's a frustrating mode that keeps content locked away and will never be able to be used in other modes, as 2K themselves have gone on record and said that they can't transfer secret characters over to Exhibition because a separate department in the office does the work for my faction, so they can't do it in coding and all this other nonsense that they said themselves. And if it wasn't for creators like What's the Status managing and transferring secret characters onto community creations, this would already be more of a wash than it already is. My faction overall is an absolute joke of a mode that even the influencers, yes, the people that they fly out and play test this shit, have dogpiled on it and told them to their faces that it is a pointless mode that they keep putting time into. Make of that what you will. I'm not even kidding when I say that. They're like, the influencers that told them verbatim, like, yo, my faction ain't it. Why y'all doing this? I cannot make this up. They've said it themselves. Like, all right, I can't make that up. So, make of that what you will. I don't like my faction. I never did. I don't get the appeal. The only reason I would ever go back to it is to try to get the platinum trophy, because I see more my faction trophies in the list of trophies this year in comparison to last year. And it's funny, it was the only reason I never platinumed the last game either. It's funny, so I probably won't this time either. So, fun. Anyway, let's get to the final thoughts. Alright, final thoughts. On my buy, wait till discount, or ignore ranking, I would say if you didn't pick up 2K22 because you were skeptical about the direction 2K were going with the series, or even back as far as to give up on the series after 2K20, which, again, after that game, I really wouldn't blame you if you did. 2K23 is just as much of a good time as its predecessor, and I honestly feel like 2K have finally found their stride with the series after this and last year. It's actually crazy how far we've come since the absolute shit show that was 2K20, and once again, here I am singing the praises of 2K with this entry. Congrats, 2K. You got me again, and I applaud you for it. Please keep up this momentum. Now, the only thing I didn't talk about was universe mode, and honestly, they give you choices about what to do and all that, but it's like, it's not enough. It's really not enough for me. The mode still needs a bunch of work, and it just kind of feels like they just like threw that in there and just be like, okay, this is something for y'all. And it's like you get to choose the cutscenes before or after cutscenes, and like how you want rivalries to go. But other than that, just like, it's not really enough to me. Like, I feel like there's so much more they can still do with universe mode. It's like the only thing I I left out, and multiplayer mode. But however, it's like y'all know what online mode is. Y'all know. It's just like people be cheesing and whatnot. I feel like that's kind of redundant if I even brought that up. So there you go. Those are two things they didn't talk about. But yeah, overall, they got themselves a winner with this one. I can see why it's getting good scores all over the place. And yeah, I really don't have that too much bad to say about it. Like, they finally found their stride with what they want to do with this series. Just don't end up being another 2K20. And now it's like, okay, we got it now. Let's keep it going. Congrats, 2K. You finally got it. Now, if you can only get rid of my faction and put that time into something else like universe mode, it would all be good and happy and pristine and all that. But anyway, that's all I got for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Leave comments, leave dislike, do what you do. Hopefully you enjoyed it as much as I did making it, because I do like making videos. I still like making reviews and all that, and especially like stuff like this. But yeah, we've come a long way from me going up against 2K and all that in my last channel, and now here we are, like, I'm singing praises again. It's weird. It's like it's almost a full circle moment, and I know, like, isn't all roses, okay? Like, it's good, but I know it could be a lot better, and as well as the my faction thing, and just what stuff is like kind of left out and all that. But yeah, could be better, could be a lot worse, and we've been at the worst spectrum with 2K20. I know it could be a lot worse, but we're at a happy medium. We are at a very, very good happy medium. Anyway, I'm going into tangents. I'll see y'all later. I'm out of here. Peace. Be safe out there.